Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, patriots and preppers. I am Mack Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. I have said before, this is not my show, this is your show. This is your grassroots activism movement. It's the On the Move movement. It can't function without you, however, it is bigger than one man. I want to thank each and every one of you for your patriotism and for taking the time to get involved. We're going to go right into it today. The topics we're going to talk about are the crazy new program that the Federal Communication Commission is putting out. They want to put government monitors in your newsrooms across the country. We're going to talk about the unrest in Kiev and the Ukraine, and we're going to talk about a progressive plot to turn Texas blue by any and all means. We're also going to talk about whatever you guys would like to talk about. The telephone number to the show, if you'd like to get involved and join the conversation, is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Today's date is February 23rd, 2014, and like I said, we have a really good show in store for you. We've got a lot of material that we're going to be covering, and I'm going to try to plow through it because I'm not sure if we're going to have enough time to get through it all. In the meantime, don't forget to check us out at OnTheMoveShow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/OnTheMoveShow, Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow, and Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can also check out our stores at OnTheMoveShow.com by clicking the shop link on the homepage. We have hundreds of products for sale on there. They range from freeze-dried food to T-shirts to books that I recommend to bumper stickers and so much more. Your purchases will help make our show much bigger and better. So thank you for your support. We really appreciate you guys checking out the store. If you would go there right now and just, take a look, I'm positive that you'll find something that you'll like. Everything on there was made for Patriots, by Patriots. They're all original designs from us. Most of it's stuff that we would just wanted to have in the first place. So we thought it up and said, hey, that would be cool to have a shirt like that or a hat like that or something. So, I want to make it for myself. So anyway, my wife, she's a professional graphic designer. This is what she does for a living. And she came up with some really good designs for it. So check it out. Let us know what you think, and especially if you get something from the store, take a picture of yourself in it and send it to us. We'd love to see you guys wearing our merchandise from the store and, supporting On the Move, and just to see you guys looking awesome in some of the shirts and stuff that we have. So that would be pretty cool. If anybody wants to do that, that'd be awesome. Send us some pictures. Check it out on the Facebook. You can contact us on Facebook, facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, and we'll post you right there on the Facebook page. Anyway, I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm going to keep talking about it until it happens here. We're in the works trying to get going with the Midnight Patriot, Jeff Norton, PatriotFB.com. We are joining their network. We are trying to network together with other podcasters and other, patriots, basically, to find a place, find a home that we can all go where we don't worry about being censored. We can talk about news, politics, all sorts of other things, have debates on topics, and not worry about, being shut down, like on operations like Facebook. You hear all the time how Facebook shut somebody down, for whatever reason, and a lot of it seems like it's censorship. So Patriot FB, we will not have that problem. It's actually been established by Jeff Norton, the Midnight Patriot. He is a patriot like you all, and he is not all about censorship. So he's all about freedom of speech and trying to get people to network together. And I'm joining that network. I'm really excited. It's going to be a good transition. The only thing right now that I'm not able to do right now is work over the mixing desk that I need. That I need to purchase a mixing desk before I can broadcast over Patriot FB. So, but everything you guys like about the show is going to stay the same, except the quality is going to be better, and we're going to have more links for you to listen to the show. And for me, that is actually awesome because I have several different devices that I listen to podcasts over, and I've noticed that some devices don't work on Blog Talk Radio, some devices do. Some devices don't work on Spreaker, which is what Patriot FB uses. So, it'd be nice to have several different avenues for you guys. If you're having issues listening to us on one avenue, you can always try another one. And I want to give you guys as many different ways as possible to find us, because if we ever get shut down, I want you all to be able to find us again. So, as many different ways to listen to the show. And like I've said before, make sure if you guys like the show and you want to spread the message and you have your own YouTube channel, I don't care. You can take parts of the show, the whole show, spread the message. I don't care. You are more than welcome to send the message out there of liberty, of this podcast, because it's only going to help us out. So if you want to, download the show, post it on your YouTube channel, go right ahead. I will not get upset at that. That's just another way for people to listen to the message. So that's what I'm talking about. I want as many different ways out there for us to network together so that no one can shut us down. Anyway, with that said, I've actually been talking with Johnny Rocket of the Launchpad. And Johnny Rocket, he's got his own libertarian-oriented podcast that he's doing up in Seattle. And as far as I know right now, it's recorded live, but it's not streamed live over to the internet. They're working on being able to get that ability. And I'm really excited about the show. I listened to it before this last week, and it was really cool. It's a really nice way to do it. I think it's gonna go over really well because it's entertaining people and educating people, and that's all part of it. That's trying to get people involved, trying to wake people up to what's going on, and it's nice to do it in that way. I think it's going to go over in a really mainstream way to a lot of the audiences that are listening to this stuff. So check out Johnny Rocket. He's doing some awesome stuff. Johnny Rocket, Launchpad.com. That's JOHNNY Rocket. That's ROCKET, Launchpad.com. All one word. Okay, so with that said, give us a call and let's know what's on your mind. And the number of the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So anyway, we have the clip that we do at the beginning of every episode. We do the same thing. We have a segment. It's called This Day in History, and here we go.
This Day in History.
Because people have got to know whether the president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Yesterday,
what our country can do for you.
Mr. Gorbachev teared down this wall.
And the people who knock these buildings down.
A date which will live
In infamy.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, according to Wikipedia, on February 23rd, 1927, that's 87 years ago, President Calvin Coolidge signed a bill creating the Federal Radio Commission, forerunner of the Federal Communications Commission. Now, this is just so happened to be a coincidence. It's very serendipitous that this happened 87 years ago today. Basically, the signing into law of the Federal Communications a branch, basically, but it's what happened before them. So the Federal Radio Commission, their predecessors. One thing we were going to talk about today is the FCC and how they're overstepping their bounds by trying to censor and intimidate news organizations. They're trying to put in people, monitors, into our newsrooms. I didn't plan this to coincide with this anniversary, but it just so happened to work out that way, and it's pretty crazy. This isn't the first time this has happened, so it's very serendipitous. But anyway, according to Wikipedia, prior to 1927, radio was regulated by the United States Department of Commerce. Commerce Secretary Herbert Hoover played a strong role in shaping radio. His powers were limited by federal court decisions, however. In particular, he was not allowed to deny broadcasting licenses to anyone who wanted one. The result was that too many people were perceived on the airwaves and it was basically suffering from chaos, with too many stations trying to be heard on far too little frequencies. Others believed that the government simply wanted to control the content. Initially, only 2 frequencies were available for broadcasting, with one of these being reserved for crop reports and weather forecasts. After several failed attempts to rectify the situation, Congress finally passed the Radio Act of 1927, which transferred most of the responsibility for radio to a newly created Federal Radio Commission. Some technical duties remained the responsibility of the radio division on the Department of Commerce. The 5-person Radio Commission was given the power to grant and deny licenses and to assign frequencies and power levels for each licensee. The commission was not given any official power of censorship, although programming could not include obscene, indecent, or profane language. In theory, anything else could be aired. In practice, The Commission could only take into consideration programming when renewing licenses, and their ability to take away a broadcaster's license enabled them to control content to some degree. The Commission also had little power over networks. In fact, the Radio Act of 1972 made almost no mention of the radio networks, notably NBC and a bit later CBS, that were in the process of dominating the radio. The only mention of radio networks was vague, and it read, the Commission, when they're referring to the Federal Radio Commission, shall have the authority to make special regulations applicable to stations engaged in chain broadcasting. In 1934, Congress passed the Communications Act, which abolished the Federal Radio Commission and transferred jurisdiction over radio licensing to a new Federal Communications Commission. Title III of the Communications Act contained provisions very similar to the Radio Act of 1927, and the new FCC largely took over the operation of its president of the FRC. That's again the Federal Radio Commission. The Federal Radio Commission also acquired jurisdiction over the communications common carriers such as telephone and telegraph companies from the Interstate Commerce Commission. Okay. So that's the history of the FCC. Just pretty crazy that it kind of coincides with today and what we're talking about, that it's in this day of history. Anyway, we're moving on. So if you'd like to join the conversation today, give us a call. The telephone number to the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. At this point, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back in about a minute 30. Don't go anywhere.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. Okay, so I'm now going to go ahead and move on to one of my favorite segments of the show. It's called The Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for The Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, this is a segment of the show where we report on armed citizens in the news who have used their firearms to defend their family, their property, and themselves. Our first weekly defender we found on the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Inside his neighborhood market, Muhammad S. Ahmed was screaming for help after a pair of armed men had left him bleeding. Outside the Northwest Minneapolis store, two men pounded on the window trying to get back into the University Market after Ahmed managed to lock them out. They seemed really agitated, super agitated, said Matt Dozer, who was walking by at about 9:30 p.m. That was on Tuesday. At first, nothing made sense. Then I saw a gun, Dozer said, who has a permit to carry a gun, and he reached for his own weapon. One of the robbers turned around and looked at me, Dozer recalled. He stared at me. I had my weapon up. I didn't point the gun at the person. I had it at the ready, out of the holster. His buddy said something to him, Dozer continued, and then he looked with a surprised face, and they both ran off to his vehicle and took off. So this guy basically pulled his gun, and these guys saw it, and they ran away. Dozer went into the University Market, finding some of its contents overturned, and Ahmed wounded and screaming on the phone to 911. Ahmed was trying to fight off his attackers. One tried to distract him, and the other one whacked him with a pistol. So they had a gun, and they still took off when Dozer pulled his gun. Somehow, this is what Dozer was saying, somehow he got them out of the store and locked the door, and they were trying to get back in. Dozer said Ahmed had the back of his skull split open pretty good. Dozer calmed the store owner down and finished the emergency call for him, making sure to tell the dispatcher what he looked like so the officers would not mistake him for one of the attackers. On Wednesday, police spokesperson John Elder called Dozer's actions a noble thing. He acted honorably. Did this person possibly save Ahmed's life? Absolutely. Police generally advise people to call 911 rather than to stop a crime themselves. And on Wednesday, Elder also warned that having a permit to carry a gun doesn't let someone act as a police officer. The permit system is different, obviously, than having a police officer's license, Elder said. Well, you know, in my personal opinion, the police are actually just citizens, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that they're just acting on our behalf as citizens. They're being deputized, but they're when they arrest somebody, they're just using their citizens' arrest ability, you know. But anyway, this is what the police are saying. They don't want you to go out there and defend others. If you see somebody, you're not supposed to help them apparently, but. No, this guy, he couldn't just sit back and let people, get hurt. So he had to step in, and I think he did the right thing. I think he's a hero, and like they said, he absolutely saved Ahmed's life. So that's pretty good. I think he's a hero. Honestly, this kind of stuff, it really surprises me when the government tells you, hey, you know what, don't get involved. You shouldn't do that. Let the police, just wait for the police, even though they take sometimes 30 minutes or longer to show up. But everybody also should be aware of that the police, they're not legally liable to protect you. So, and that's a Supreme Court ruling. They have no right to protect, no requirement no duty to protect you. So, because of that, they could just circle the block and wait until everything's over and then come investigate the crime. Now, I'm not saying that they do that, but usually what police tend to do is they show up after a crime has been committed and investigate. They usually don't show up as the crime is happening. So I wouldn't be, me personally, I'm not going to be waiting on the police to save my butt. I'm going to make sure that I am able to defend myself. So anyway, the police went on to say the permit system is different. Like I said, it's obviously different than having a police officer license. And when people get a permit to carry, they are instructed not to intercede into a crime that is occurring. It's solely for personal protection. This is the police saying this. Dozer, age 41, said he typically keeps his gun concealed as permitted under 2003 Minnesota law, especially in the city. I'm thankful they passed concealed carry, Dozer said. Police can't be everywhere. He said he came close to using his gun about 8 years ago while getting lunch for his tree removal crew in North Minneapolis. Two men were stomping on another man. He said, "I'll shoot you if you don't stop kicking that guy," and that's what he recalled yelling anyway. The kicking stopped, he said, and those guys ended up taking off. So Ahmed said that he hopes the video surveillance shows a clear face of one of those guys and that it leads to their arrest. His head is still hurting after nearly a full day and with 7 surgical staples in his wound. Ahmed said that he has no second thoughts about trying to overpower an armed suspect. He could have shot me regardless, Ahmed said, and I had a gun put to my face, he said in an interview on Wednesday afternoon while back at the store to clean up the mess after the attack. He said, "I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy." So anyway, that was our first Weekly Defender. The next Weekly Defender we found on ABC 7 Action News. A mother was at home with her children in Detroit, Michigan, when 3 men, one of whom was armed with a handgun, broke into the house. The mother responded by retrieving a semi-automatic rifle and warning the intruders that she was armed. When the criminals persisted despite the warning, the mother fired at the home invaders. At first, all 3 intruders retreated outside the home, but one armed with a pistol decided to try to enter the home again. The criminals' re-entry prompted another round fired from the mother, at which point the armed home invader fled for good. Police eventually captured the trio a short time later. I actually have a clip here from 7 Action News, and I'll go ahead and play it for you all, and you can listen to it from what was on the news from 7 Action. Okay.
Watching 7 Action News, always taking action for you.
We begin tonight with a gripping story you'll see only on 7.
A brave mom takes aim to protect her family from home invaders busting down the door. That's just the start of a drama that played out in front of a surveillance camera.
7 Action News reporter Simon Shaquette is live downtown police headquarters tonight to show you how this all went down. And Simon, they certainly messed with the wrong mom here, huh?
This mom was prepared to do anything to defend her young, and remarkably, it was all caught on video. Take a good look at the 3 teenage punks caught here on surveillance video. They don't know it yet, but they've picked the wrong home to rob. They break down the door and race in, only to find the mom inside, locked, loaded, and about to pull the trigger of this rifle. One of these young thugs also has a handgun he drops right here as they make a run for it. Then he boldly picks it up and goes in one more time, only to get another dose. The brave mother in the home was defending her 2 young children here on Woodrow Wilson. She and her husband recently had security cameras installed after a different break-in attempt just 2 weeks ago. This time, she didn't have time to feel fear, only to react.
I let them know I had a gun once they was in the house, and they challenged me and said I don't have a gun. So that's when I shot off the first round. I wasn't feeling anything at the moment. I got scared afterwards.
Once she called 911, Detroit police were quick to respond and go after these 3 thugs. It didn't take long for them to get locked up.
The cops got all 3 of them and the gun they had. I give them a lot of credit because they handled it the same night.
As Chief Craig has said in the past, I mean, there's no more, your time is up. We don't have any more patience for criminals in the city. We will get you, we will find you, and you will go to jail.
We don't know exactly what these lowlifes came to steal, but one of the children inside knew Mom would protect her and her valuables at all costs.
She said, "Oh no, Mommy, I don't want them to take my piggy bank or my toys."
Important to mention, nobody was hit by any of that gunfire, and meantime, kudos to Detroit police for great work last night. Live downtown, Simon Shaquette, 7 Action News. Carolyn, back to you.
Absolutely. They caught them so quickly. Have these kids been in trouble before? All 3 of them are teenagers, Simon?
Yes, they have. They are familiar to police, and they're certainly taking that into account. They will be charged soon in this case as well.
All right, so, we here at On the Move, we love hearing about law-abiding citizens using their firearms to protect themselves. We believe that you have a right to defend your life, you have a right to defend your family, and you have a right to defend your freedom. We at On the Move support your rights. If you have a story about how you lawfully defended yourself or you would like to comment on one of these stories, we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call. The telephone number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, at this point, we're going to go ahead and take another quick break, and when we get back, we'll be entering into the new segment, to another segment called The Mack Attack.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. So I would like to take a moment to talk to you all about the FCC and what they are doing. in a segment that we like to call the Mack Attack.
It's time for the Mack Attack!
All right, in this segment, I give you my take on outrageous... Sorry about that, I'm having some technical difficulty here. Okay, there we go. So in this segment, I like to give you my take on outrageous events in the news. If you want to join the conversation, please give us a call. The telephone number of the show is 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so I mentioned before the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, which regulates interstate and international communications by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable. You know, they are now putting monitors, or trying to put monitors, into newsrooms across the country. They say that this is a voluntary program that people can participate in, or news organizations can participate in. I have here a clip from Judge Andrew Napolitano, and he's discussing this situation, this new program that they're trying to put in here. So here's what he had to say about it.
But a free press is also essential for our democracy. Our freedom as a nation rests on our freedom of the press.
We also live in a democracy where a free press, free expression, and the open flow of information helps hold me accountable.
President Obama said he's all about freedom of the press, so why is the administration rolling out a controversial new program to probe media outlets and grill them on how they report the news?
Sitting us right now is a man that's head's exploding because of this.
Yes.
Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano.
What will they think of next?
I mean, is this unbelievable?
It is unbelievable. And
first let's explain where it came from. This came from the White House.
This actually came from the White House, an instruction to the Federal Communications Commission, which does regulate Fox. It doesn't regulate Fox News Channel or Fox Business Network,
right,
but it regulates many entities owned by our parent corporation that also owns us because of the licenses we need from the FCC in order to transmit our programming. And so the FCC has said, we're thinking of sending agents into newsrooms to see how you determine what news stories to carry. Now, if that doesn't chill the freedom of the press, if that doesn't make you wonder and worry, my God, are the feds going to approve this decision that I'm making? Then that is a direct violation of the First Amendment.
Clearly, and then you look at what has happened, what was revealed in the last year, where the Department of Justice targeted the Associated Press, targeted our own James Rosen,
yes,
because they were involved in somebody who was leaking information to them. Next thing you know, you put those two things together, it's chilling.
It's absolutely chilling. Chilling is a term of art to people that study the Constitution, and it basically means you are afraid to express yourself fully because the federal agents are looking over your shoulder.
Absolutely.
And guess what?
They're listening in on your phone calls.
Correct. Well, we already know they're listening in on our phone calls. They just beat to me because they're listening to exactly what I'm saying here without even watching some television.
They're paging you?
Just about. They are reading our emails. They're reading our texts. They're looking at our bank statements. They're reading our utility bills. They know everything about.
They put out my garbage last night.
Well, that would be nice if they did that. Now they want to know ahead of time what news we're going to cover. Those pieces you just ran of the president praising the First Amendment were accurate and true. What he forgot to say, however, is that this freedom is not just necessary and vital. It's absolutely guaranteed in the First Amendment, beyond dispute. There is no case that stands for the contrary of that proposition.
Can it survive based on the pressure that it's going to receive?
I don't think so. That's a great question. This is a radical new era of tyranny for the White House. I can't imagine it getting to first base.
Right, now, what do you recommend Roger Ailes do?
If the FCC shows up here, Mr. Ailes, throw them out, unless they have a search warrant from a judge, which they'll never get.
Well, I can't imagine any editor or any boss at any news outlet allowing them in, because right now it is voluntary, isn't it?
Well, all these things
are always voluntary.
This is like Joe Biden putting his arm on the shoulder of the president of BP saying, we need $20 billion bucks. You'll volunteer that, won't you? While the arm is still there. Nothing's voluntary with the government.
It's scary. All right. Judge Napolitano, thank you very much.
Brian, you got me up early on this one.
Oh, you were flying in the hallway.
This is what it does. Woken you right out of bed. It's so startling. Thank you, Judge.
So, to me, it's pretty unbelievable that they're doing this. I mean, I know so many things just keep happening, and I keep saying, I can't believe they're doing that. I can't believe they can get away with this. But it seems like they like to do this kind of thing incrementally. They know that if they mandated that somebody was there, that people would be up in arms, and people are already up in arms, don't get me wrong. But if the Associated Press, if the press doesn't wake up to their own demise, I mean, they're just helping this thing along. If they do not stop this government from what they're trying to do and actually cover the real news, start covering the things that are going on, how they're trying to restrict them, how the AP, the Associated Press had all their telephone records seized, which led to the CIA finding out who their confidential sources were. You know, all this stuff they're doing without warrants, the NSA spying, all the stuff that I've been screaming about for a while now. And I'm sure you guys have heard me. If you listen to the show, you've heard me talk about all these things over and over and over again. Well, the press isn't doing anything about it. The press is just being complicit in these kind of things. So I hope that they really wake up and understand that the FCC is trying to not just put a monitor in their office. That means they're trying to put a censor in their office and control what kind of news they're allowed to go through. According to an article written by Paul Joseph Watson on Infowars.com, the American Center for Law and Justice is warning of an Obama administration plan to place government monitors in newsrooms via the FCC proposal that could turn every major news network and newspaper into little more than a state media mouthpiece. FCC Commissioner Ajit Pai, I think that's how you say that, it's Ajit Pai, Ajit Pai, I don't know, recently lifted the lid on the shocking White House proposal entitled Multi-Market Study of Critical Information Needs that would dispatch researchers from the federal agency to grill, now this is exact words, to grill reporters, editors, and station owners about how they decide which stories to run. According to Pai, the program is about pressuring media organizations into covering certain stories. In other words, the fairness doctrine on steroids. So, you know, according to the article, they say that the Obama administration has developed a formula of what it believes the free press should cover, and it's going to send government monitors into newsrooms across America to stand over the shoulders of the press as they make editorial decisions. That's what Matthew Clark of the ACLJ said. So this is really insane. This reminds me of the fascist regime of Nazis, Hitler back in the day. They used to have government censors going through people's mail and finding out if you're releasing secrets about what's going on in Germany. They would have the same thing that happened in their media rooms too. And basically the media, there was no such thing as a free media. It was just a government mouthpiece for their propaganda. So is the government going to win in this battle? Are they going to force these media companies into having a censor in their office? Well, right now it's optional, it's voluntary, but it's really not voluntary considering the fact that the FCC is the organization that issues the licenses to these people. So imagine if you say, no, FCC, I'm not going to allow you to have somebody look over our shoulder here. Are they going to come into a situation down the road where their licenses isn't able to be renewed? Well, anyway, the distrust in the mainstream media has been on a steady decline for years, with recent Gallup poll confirming that just 23% of Americans trust the institution of television news. This lack of confidence has driven ratings down, with MSNBC losing almost half of its viewers over the course of just 12 months, shedding 45% of its audience. CNN has almost lost 48% of its viewers over the same period of time. The United States world ranking in terms of freedom over the press also recently fell to number 46, below the likes of South Africa, Slovenia, and Lithuania. 46th in the freedom of press. Would any of you actually thought that this day would ever come? I mean, honestly, we're supposed to be the freest country in the world. We're supposed to be the beacon of liberty that all other countries look to and aspire to. But now there's 45 other countries that have a freer press than us. And we're looking at countries like Slovenia and Lithuania that have freer press than us. This is unbelievable. I know I say it all the time, but look at our country. When you went to bed a year ago, did you think that you would ever wake up and it would be like this? When you went to bed 10 years ago, did you ever think that it would be like this? I mean, look, if you've been around for a while, I mean, you don't recognize this country anymore. It's not what it used to be. What are we going to do? Are we going to stand up? Are we going to actually say, hey, this cannot happen? We will not let you chip away at our freedoms like this. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. Anyway, back to the article. Earlier this month, the New York Times' own writers told a newspaper that New York Times opinion pieces are now seen as irrelevant and have no impact on public discourse whatsoever. The FCC's attempt to police newsrooms is a desperate attempt to redress the fact, as Hillary Clinton admitted, the Obama administration is losing the information war. That's her words. To other news sources whose audiences are growing. However, those alternative news outlets are not growing because of slick propaganda. They are stealing audiences' share from the mainstream media because they at least try to act as an adversarial role to the state rather than as being a conduit for its talking points. Every major repressive regime in the modern era has begun with an attempt to control and intimidate the press, warns Clark, adding, "It's hard to imagine anything more brazenly Orwellian than the government that monitors in its newsroom, or than government monitors in newsrooms." This is very serious. This government is systematically going after the free press. I've talked to you about how they're trying to go after whistleblowers and then journalists who report on information provided from the leakers. Now they're trying to actually put a government monitor in every newsroom across the country, even in newspaper offices, which the FCC has absolutely nothing to do with. One thing that now I'm thinking about it, this show, I don't have a license other than I guess that there's some kind of license that Blog Talk Radio does on their end. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I wonder if at some point the FCC is going to try to have somebody in my studio here. I operate basically out of a broom closet, so I literally would have an FCC guy sitting like an inch away from me as I'm in this little tiny room doing this broadcast. So, and then what if they say you're not actually a journalist or you're not media if you don't have an FCC guy in your room? Yeah, you have the freedom to do whatever you want, and you can broadcast, and we're not gonna stop you from broadcasting, but you don't fall underneath the First Amendment freedom of press if you don't have this FCC guy here, because that's who we consider media, is somebody who's regulated and controlled by the FCC. So everyone else, you can broadcast, but we can shut you down, because you're not considered real media. This is a battle that we've been fighting, citizen journalists have been fighting for a long time, and we've been trying to decide in the country what the spirit of that law meant. To me, and I think to our founders, the free press is so important, and it wasn't meant to have the government involved in it at all. It's a free press, free of government involvement. The FCC claims that this program is voluntary. Who issues those licenses to broadcast on radio and television? It's the FCC. Do you think that there will be any issues in the future when the FCC is denied access to their studios for this voluntary program? When they try to renew their broadcasting licenses, of course there will be. People are going to get their licenses denied. Of course that's going to happen. We've already seen that this administration will go after its political enemies with the IRS scandal, where the IRS was used to target Tea Party organizations. You'd better believe that we will hear about this kind of tactic being used to coerce news organizations around this country to comply. So, it's not really that far of a stretch to imagine that. So, what they want is control. That's it, plain and simple. They want to control what news that we are fed. They want to control where we get our news, and they want to, most importantly, be able to shut down our news. So what exactly will these FCC monitors be doing? Okay? And when the FCC monitors are in place, what then? You know, I want to know what are they going to be doing in this office, okay? And will they be given the chance to see stories that are being investigated before it's in the news? Yes, they're going to be part of the editorial process. Will they be reviewing the news before it can be reported on? Absolutely. One thing that they're going to be trying to do is steer us to talk about whatever news stories that they have an agenda for. And we've already seen that these federal agencies have an agenda. They're directed directly from the White House, and this mandate, this program, this voluntary program, is already being sent down from the White House. So will these monitors be able to kill the stories they don't want people to hear about? Will these news organizations be coerced into submitting to whatever the FCC demands in order to keep their licenses? According to Matthew Clark of the ACLJ, the FCC has already selected 8 categories of critical information that it believes local newscasters should cover. That's right, the Obama administration has developed that formula that they think that the free press should cover, and they are sending those monitors into our newsrooms, and they will be part of the editorial discussions and decisions. This is a slippery slope. Our free press is a critically important tool against corruption and tyranny. Believe me when I say it, it is a check and a balance. It's no different than the separation of governmental powers. And we know how our president feels about those pesky checks and balances. You know, the ones that prevent one man from amassing too much power and essentially becoming a dictator? It allows us to be educated on what the government is doing behind closed doors. Citizen journalists are a critical tool in that free press. Without the free press, we wouldn't know what the government is doing on our behalf. How long until the so-called voluntary program turns into a requirement to broadcast? How long until they try to shut down people like me? If there's no pushback on this issue, the FCC will think they can get away with chipping at our liberties little by little. And this is what they do. They will continue this. So we have to fight this every step of the way because this is wrong. There's right and there's wrong, and this is just plain wrong. Anyway, I have a clip here from Glenn Beck of The Blaze. He's talking about this, and here's what he had to say.
They are trying to make us into slaves. Now, let me show you something else. You've got to control the media if you're going to control a country. Well, the FCC has just put 2 big agenda pieces out for this year. The first one is net neutrality. We told you about this at Fox. It went away for a while, but they're back because they say net neutrality is just a set of open internet rules. That's it. But it is clearly an attempt at regulating one of the only, if not the only, area in our life that is completely unregulated, right? Totally unregulated, and wouldn't you know it, as it stands right now, pretty good, pretty awesome. I mean, you can get whatever you want, good or bad, it's right there, it's working great. You think it's going to get better when the government gets their greasy little hands on it? Now, net neutrality is one of them. The other disturbing piece, and I've never seen this, I've been in radio since I was 13 years old, this is never, even FDR and Wilson didn't try this. An announcement from the FCC, they have launched a pilot program which involves government agents monitoring on what's going on in local newsrooms around the nation. This sounds like a fabulous idea. You know, imagine the morning meeting that we have, that pitch session, and what I would have been able to accomplish if I had just a friendly government agent standing in the room. What could possibly go wrong, mein Führer? Now, they claim that the monitoring program is just going to help them better understand, watch this, quote, the process by which stories are selected and how often stations cover critical information needs. That's a key phrase here. In other words, they want to understand why you're picking the stories, okay, and not covering the right stories. What is Vladimir Putin running the FCC now? No, progressives are. I don't know about you, I've always wanted to be a little bit more like China or Al Jazeera. Wouldn't that be great? Oh, man, if we could just have a government official telling us what we should and shouldn't cover. By the way, there's a new survey out. If I said to you, in the entire world, freedom of press, where is the United States of America? You would think top 10, right? Well, last year we were top 20. We are now, where are we? Number 46. Sorry, it was been expected. Number 46. 46 in freedom of the press. Look at some of these. Portugal, Belize is better. Belgium, Uruguay, Ghana is better. El Salvador is better than we are. And why is this? Because we are now arresting reporters. Oh, you probably haven't heard about that because the reporters are afraid to report on it. They're clamping down, and it's about to get much worse. In fact, the FCC commissioner didn't try to hide the fact that his monitoring opens the door to possible government abuse and the ability to intimidate news outlets. Listen to what he actually is willing to say on the record. The agency plans to send researchers to grill reporters, editors, and station owners about how they decide which stories to run. A field test in Columbia, South Carolina is scheduled to begin this spring. You got to stop this. There is no way that we're number 46 for very long in this country. Just a few more journalists falling from their apartment windows or having their cars mysteriously blow up. And we beat Russia on that list in no time. The noose is being put around this country's neck, and it is being tightened by progressives on both sides of the aisle. And I'm telling you, the rest of the world, what we're seeing in Kiev right now, what we're seeing in the streets, they had today, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, they have snipers, government snipers, just shooting protesters in the streets. We are on the sides of the protesters, but have you heard the president? The president practically went over and just hugged everybody in Tahrir Square. He's not talking about this one, and it's also happening in Venezuela. Do you remember when I did this map over at Fox, and I showed this map? There it is over there. And I said, right here, I had that map, and I said, they're going to work together against Israel, work against capitalism, work together to overturn stability. The protests become contagious. They cascade. They sweep the Middle East. They destabilize Europe and the rest of the world. We're here, gang. We're here. You want to see our future? You just keep watching and remaining silent. I'm sorry. I know you are not silent, but boy, too many of our neighbors are. And they're going to wake up, and it's going to be too late. Jay Sekulow, he is one of the really good guys. He is the chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Jay, have I overstated this at all? Please pull me back.
No, Glenn, this is, I'll tell you something, we've actually read this monstrosity from the FCC, almost 80 pages of it. And it basically takes the old fairness doctrine on steroids. And the fairness doctrine, you had to present a balance to you in your news reporting and station reporting. This one says we're going to put monitors, FCC, they call them researchers, but they're monitors, into these stations, voluntary, of course. But the voluntary, everybody understands, the FCC grants the license, so there's really nothing voluntary about this. You start saying no, and all of a sudden your license doesn't get renewed. They're going to put monitors in there to determine how your philosophical viewpoint is determined in news editorials, and how you decide what stories to promote and what positions to take. Now, since when is it the job of the federal government to do this? And the answer is it is not. It's a complete violation of the First Amendment's freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of association. And Glenn, the reality is, and you said it really correctly, this is worse than the Campbell's nose in the tent. This is the government in your newsroom, your editorial meeting, as you call it, your pit meeting before you go on air, and they're there with their badge saying, gee, that's an interesting, why'd you go that way? And
I have to tell you, we wouldn't have been able to...
I think the answer to that needs to be no.
We wouldn't have been able to report anything that we reported at Fox. We wouldn't have been able to do any of it. I wouldn't be able to do this because I wouldn't be able to say, wait a minute, let's go investigate this on the government. They're arresting reporters right now who are trying to leak information. Everything that we have done on For the Record, we would not be able to do because there would be no secrecy. They already have the NSA. They already have intimidated the people that are giving us information on For the Record. Now you're going to intimidate, and you have to tell them. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, well, look what they did to James Rosen. I mean, our friends at Fox News. I mean, and going after, following his parents around, or the Associated Press with the subpoenas issued there. So the president's complaining about conservative media in every chance he gets to talk about it. So are we shocked that now the FCC puts in this, pilot program? They say, oh, it's just voluntary. It's just a pilot program. But, the reality is this is typical government. If it's a pilot program, that means once the pilot's successful and they're getting what they want, they expand it to everybody else.
Okay,
so I think the American people need to rise up here, and I'll tell you something, Glenn. We launched a campaign yesterday on air on our radio broadcast, and in 24 hours had almost 50,000 signatures at ACLJ.org. I mean, people are responding, and I know with you covering it now, we'll add to that significantly. The fact of the matter is, this is the greatest assault on free press that we've seen in my lifetime, and I cannot imagine anyone, right, left, or center, saying this is a good thing.
Yeah, no, there's no one there's no one left with any common sense a bone in their body that says this is a good thing at all. Jay, I want to have you on the radio show tomorrow. We'll expose it on the radio show and really have people understand what it is in great detail. Can you do me a favor and give me the address if people want to sign up and stand? Why is that important, and what's the address?
It's ACLJ.org, so just ACLJ.org. And I'll tell you why it's important, Glenn. You know, the Constitution says we have the right to petition our government for the redress of a grievance. This is exactly that. And there's already some congressional movement. But like you said, we got to get the people that understand constitutional conservatism, that understand the First Amendment in Congress to get this thing. There's not a middle ground here. It has to be stopped. Period. The answer to this program needs to be it's gone. That's the only successful conclusion.
Is the ACLU on your side? It's got to be the left has to be.
They haven't expressed an opinion on this one yet. But you know what's interesting? On those IRS regulations that are proposed, the ACLU and the ACLJ taking the exact same position, saying that those are fundamental violations of free speech.
Well, these are just it's so egregious. There's no way. I mean, unless you're a complete and total sham,
you're right.
There's no way that you can say this is right. Jay, thank you very much for all of your hard work and your stand on this.
Thanks, Glenn.
You bet. Back in just a minute.
All right, so that was The Blaze. That was Glenn Beck talking about this FCC monitoring program that they're putting down our throats, basically, in the media, how our media is suffering. We can see we're just hemorrhaging our freedoms, and it seems like they're getting bolder and bolder, and they keep going for us, in different ways. Anyway, this is going to lead us to the next segment of the show, the Listener Challenge. We're going to go back into that when we come back from this commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
All right, we're back. You guys would probably laugh at you if you saw how much I scramble before the show to get everything ready for you all. I've been scrambling behind the scenes right now, and I've actually just got another clip here that I found of Hillary Clinton talking about the information war. I'm trying to be able to play that here, but it's going to take a few seconds for me to get the clip loaded into Blog Talk Radio. But anyway, it's going to lead us here, like I said, to the next segment of the show. We're joining here on the Listener Challenge. So here we go. Not sure why this clip isn't playing. Anyway, Blog Talk is having some really bad technical problems today. I got a huge delay on things, so I'm not sure why it's doing this, but I'll try it again here.
I challenge you to a duel. Did you hear that? Sounds like it's time for a challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge.
All right, this is a segment of the show where I like to challenge you all and give you something to do, get on the move, get out there doing something. So your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to sign the petition brought forth by the ACLJ to prevent the Federal Communications Commission from putting the government monitors into our newsrooms across the country. All you have to do is go to facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. I have posted it on there for you all to sign. The petition is one of the most recent posts, and it should be near the top. sign it, share it, talk about it with your family. This petition can be used to show our government that we don't want them involved in the editorial processes of our news. We don't want their censorship. It will send a message to our government that we will not stand for their attempted censorship. It will serve as a reminder to those little men with their little minds that they work for us. As I always say, our government knows that for every person that signs a petition, there are many others that feel the same way but didn't even know about the petition to begin with. Please join me in signing this petition. Stand with the Constitution. Stand for freedom. Stand for the First Amendment and the freedom of our press. Stand for liberty. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this, okay? Join the conversation by giving us a call at 619-924-0986. Again, that is 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com and give us your take on it. Also, if you go to onthemoveshow.com right now, we have a new quick poll that is at the bottom of the page. So go ahead, open up a new page here if you're on the computer. Open up a web browser here, check it out, onthemoveshow.com. Go down to the bottom of the page, and you can vote on the quick poll. The quick poll says, should the FCC be allowed to put monitors into newsrooms? You can choose yes, no, you're unsure. And I'd like to see what you guys have to say. I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of this quick poll. Don't forget, you can leave comments on the results page of the quick poll at onthemoveshow.com. And if you have something you'd like to say, leave the comment on there, and I will read it on the air on the next episode. All right, so one thing that I would like to discuss here is what's actually going on in Kiev, the Ukraine. You know, I've been trying to struggle to get caught up on this because I didn't know a lot of the politics. I may be like you guys in that aspect. I didn't know the politics of Kiev. I didn't know that they used to be part of the Soviet Union, and when the Soviet Union broke up, and was dissolved, basically fell apart, collapsed, that's a good word for it. Kiev became its own sovereign nation, its own independent nation. And it's pretty interesting of the process for that, because a lot of these countries had to fight to actually win their independence. Anyway, I have here an article from the Daily Mail Online. They say that the violence witnessed in Kiev this week is the worst seen in the country's 22 years as an independent nation. But the problems began when it broke away from the USSR, and the leadership worsened when Yanukovych took power. When he took power in 2010, the country had two possible futures. One was under his authoritarian rule, and the other was as a member of the EU, that's the European Union. But while some tried to shake off the Soviets' past, others were still under Russian influence. And the Western country is denouncing Yanukovych's rule, while the eastern side of and the southern side of the country want rebels to be confronted with force of government troops. Okay, so this is a country divided. You have the eastern and south, they're on one side, they're influenced by Russia, and you have the western side that's industrialized, and they are, influenced by the EU and Europe, and they kind of side with that. And Kiev, Kiev just so happens to be placed in the western side, the industrial side that's supporting the EU. So anyway, the west of the country is denouncing Yanukovych's rule, and like I said, this country has never fought for its independence like the other bloc states, including Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. The main problem, however, stems from this political divide. The industrialized East. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I apologize. I misspoke. The East is industrialized, not the West, including the Crimea. The Midwestern Ukraine have always been at odds over their identity. While the East has maintained ties to Russia, people of the West have opposed the regimes and refused to recognize Yanukovych's tight grip on power. In 2004, Mr. Yanukovych was accused of trying to steal the election, and protesters reacted violently. His opponents took power instead in what has become known as the Orange Revolution. But 6 years later, Yanukovych was democratically elected. After his election, the West turned a blind eye to his accumulation of power and wealth, even though a Kremlin style of governance was taking shape. When he began negotiating with the European Union with the aim of joining the free trade movement, he used it as an opportunity to tighten his grip over the country. During the talks, Vladimir Putin held a secret meeting with Yanukovych and agreed to provide the ex-Soviet state with cheap gas and 9 billion euros in credit. As a result, the EU deal was shelved. The Russian president has never come to terms with Ukraine's independence and sovereignty. It is this attitude of the former Soviet states which resulted in a 5-day war with Georgia following NATO's attempt to recruit them as a member nation. Now, geographical divisions have grown. The head of Ukraine's security service says the police stations are being taken over by anti-government demonstrators. The Crimea, however, holds most of Russia's naval fleet. There have been talks in the region of seceding from the main state. Okay, so Yanukovych, I was actually looking on there, and actually the website I got this from, the Daily Mail Online. This article, at the very top of the page, it had a bunch of pictures from Yanukovych's mansion. He had this crazy, lavish place. It was a spread, basically. All the stuff looked crazy expensive. It was like a 5-story home or something like that, and 100-and-something acres property, if I'm not mistaken. But all this stuff was paid for with the taxpayer money. All this stuff was government dime, and I find it kind of interesting how the corruption there kind of parallels to the corruption that we're seeing here at home. And for me, this kind of corruption is the most upsetting when you see people literally taking the money out of the coffers and they're using it for their own personal gain. One thing that I would also like to add, there's a quote from Alexander Fraser Tytler, I think that's the name of it, Alexander Fraser Tytler. He's a Athenian, back in Athens, ancient Greece. He was a historian, basically a philosopher, I believe, and he says a democracy is always temporary in nature. It cannot simply exist as a permanent form of government. A democracy will continue to exist up until the time the voters discover that they can vote themselves generous gifts from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for candidates who promise the most benefits from the public treasury, with the results that every democracy will finally collapse due to loose fiscal policy, which is always followed by a dictatorship. The average age of the world's greatest civilizations from the beginning of history has been about 200 years. During those 200 years, these nations always progress through the following sequence: from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to selfishness, from selfishness to complacency, from complacency to apathy, from apathy to dependence, from dependence back into bondage. Look at that, and this was spoken in ancient Greece, hundreds of years ago. It can totally parallel to what's going on today. One thing that I always point out is that I believe that the greatest generation to ever live was our grandparents, the men and women who fought in World War II and got us through that horrible fascist regime, the Nazi regime, and they did so many things that we couldn't even fathom. They put up with so many different things that we couldn't fathom. I believe that we are at a time in history where we need to stand up, because we're going to fall back into that cycle of corruption, of tyranny. But I'm not sure if we're able to now. We have, according to what this Athenian scholar said, we have to fall back into that slavery, that bondage, in order to get out of it. I hope that's not the case. But I mean, it's something to think about, because right now, can you parallel that to what's going on? We have welfare, unemployment, food stamps. The government now is not making it easier for you to survive. They're making it easier for you to survive without a job while being solely dependent on them. They're making you totally dependent on them. And even you can't even realize some of the ways that you're dependent on them. Through, for example, let's look at Obamacare. Some people don't even think about that. Oh, hey, my health care is cheaper now. But is it really cheaper? No, you're being subsidized. So that's taking that money out of taxpayer money and it's giving it to you. Somebody is paying that. So that means somebody's paying more than what they used to. nothing's free. There is no such thing as a free lunch. So, and it parallels to other areas. I mean, we see that the Democrats have become the party of handouts. They will literally pay people to vote for them with topics like amnesty and other issues like that. It's basically buying the illegal immigrant votes, buying the Hispanic votes. And other things like, people who are on welfare are obviously going to vote for Democrats because Republicans have historically been trying to cut welfare. One thing that I don't understand is how in the heck that the Democrats became the party of the minority. How did it become this like tolerant party that everyone seems to think is so tolerant and accepting of your ways? Because just a few decades ago, 1964, for example, they were so opposed to the black people getting their own rights. They were really racist. The KKK, they were typically Democrats. And the sheriffs in the South that were trying to prevent these black people from being able to vote and to go into these areas and protest and things like that. The sheriffs who were sicking the dogs on these people out while they're marching, those were Democrat sheriffs. And who was the opposing force against the Civil Rights Act of 1964? The Democrats. How did we go from having this racist party of Democrats who the KKK sided with, and now suddenly it's the party of the minority? Well, because there's profit to be made in it, and they realize that they can get people to vote for them if they have this kind of like the right. Those guys are racist. Those guys are bigots. And maybe some people are, and I'm not denying that there are people out there that are racist. There are definitely people out there that are racist. But let's get away from this whole left-right paradigm, okay? Let's look at it. Let's look at the issues, find out what they are, and stop voting people into office that are only trying to get in for political reasons. A lot of what we hear in the news nowadays is, Republicans, we can't fight for you right now because there's too much at stake. We won't win the Senate. If we fight for you, we may lose the Senate, and once we get the Senate, we can fight for you then. But what it's going to be is, now we got the House and the Senate, and we can't fight for you now because we have to get the presidency. So if we don't get the presidency, we won't have anything, and eventually nothing's going to be good enough. It will always be, we have to do this, because these people don't want to fight for us. They don't want to actually stand up for what's right because that's difficult, and because they can be looked at like a bad guy, and because they actually have to win a debate. I personally, and I've said it so many times, but I will not vote for a Republican who is a statist. I will not vote for a Republican who will not fight for us. So anyway, at this point, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'll be right back, and when we come back, we're going to be talking more about the Kiev situation and basically my thoughts on how it applies to us here.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. Okay, so I've been scrambling around here, and I managed to get this this clip for Hillary Clinton's. She was talking about how we lost the information war. I'll go ahead and play it for you guys, and here it is. I haven't even had a chance to listen to the whole thing, so here it is, guys.
We are engaged in an information war. You know, during the Cold War, we did a great job in getting America's message out. After the Berlin Wall fell, we said, okay, fine, enough of that. You know, we've done it, we're done. And unfortunately, we are paying a big price for it. And our private media cannot fill that gap. In fact, our private media, particularly cultural programming, often works at counter purposes to what we truly are as Americans and what our values are. I remember having an Afghan general tell me that the only thing he thought about Americans is that all the men wrestled and the women walked around in bikinis, because the only TV he ever saw was Baywatch and Worldwide Wrestling. So we are in an information war, and we are losing that war. I'll be very blunt in my assessment. Al Jazeera is winning. The Chinese have opened up a global English language and multi-language television network. The Russians have opened up an English language network. I've seen it in a few countries, and it's quite instructive.
Okay, so with that said, that was her saying that she thinks that they are losing the information war. And she brought up things like Al Jazeera. She thinks that Al Jazeera is basically a beacon of news. This is what we should be striving for. Honestly, does anybody want to be like Al Jazeera? Does anybody want our news to be more like Al Jazeera? Because the FCC sure is trying to make us like that. Anyway, as far as could this situation that's happening in the Ukraine, could that happen here? Could what is happening in Kiev happen here? One thing that I think it's important to note, people are always really quick to say, hey, we should start a revolution. We should just go to Washington and take it over. And I've had this discussion, and maybe sometimes I've thought rashly myself and thought maybe hey, this is it. This is the point when we should do something about it. Who's gonna do it? But honestly, I don't believe that we could win. I think that conservatives have a major disadvantage. I think that libertarians have a major disadvantage when it comes to this, because all you have to do is look at the way that the left operates. The left operates in the shadows, okay? The left will try to chip slowly at your rights. They will try to systematically take things away, and they do it inadvertently. Some of the ways that they do it are really sneaky, and I'll go over them in a minute. But also, they're willing to break the law. They will break the law in order to serve their means, basically. If they think it will get them what they want and there's little risk of them getting caught, they'll break the law. They don't have a problem with that. With that said, look at conservatives in general, okay? Conservatives, it's not, first of all, conservatism is not a party. It's a set of values. It's a way people live their lives. So a conservative member is less likely to really fight the government, or try to do something that's illegal, or try to basically kick against what is going on, because they it's in their values. They just kind of want to be left alone, and they don't want anybody to harass them, and they really won't step up and do something drastic unless the government forces them to. And that's the thing about what's going on right now. The progressives, they've established a form of government that it doesn't force you to act. They don't do anything in particular that forces you to act and to get involved, but they do everything in their power to prevent you from acting. It's like this big chain that we're all hanging around our necks, and it's weighing us all down. It's not enough to where we have to take it off because we can't move, but it is slowing down our progress. And that's really the definition of progressivism, is to slow down progress. It's the exact opposite of what you may think the name would do. And, that's one thing, is that people have started to realize what these ideas are. People realize what Marxism was, and socialism was, and communism was. So as they started realizing this thing, they changed their name. And, the Democrat Party kind of became a haven for these things. So it was the Democrats who were endorsing Marxism, socialism, and communism. And then now, people don't like that. It's not going to go over popular, so we'll change it to liberals, okay? And then people started to figure that out. And then they changed the name to progressives. And people start figuring that out. At what point are they going to change the name again? And you hear, this is a very common progressive tactic. They're doing the same thing with Common Core. Common Core, as you all may or may not know, I don't know, but Common Core has become this basically a toxic situation involved with it, because Common Core, I'll break it down. Common Core basically sets forth a set of regulations for all the states that they mandate you to educate your kids a minimum of, okay? So all the state schools, they have to do these things. If you're in grade 3, you have to learn this thing. If you're in grade 4, you're required to go over this thing. They even give you books that people are required to read. So basically, they are telling you, the federal government is telling the states what the curriculum is that they will teach their kids. All right, and some people, on paper, it sounds like a good idea. It means that when somebody transfers from Arkansas to New York or something, they will have learned the same stuff, and it won't be this big divide as far as what they've learned. And that's their excuse, is why they want to do this program, Common Core. But critics of the program, and I happen to be one of them, first of all, it totally violates state sovereignty. The federal government has absolutely no right to tell the states how to educate their children. Secondly, it's creating mindless drones out there, all educated the same way, taught to think the same way, and no one has a difference in this education. So, and on top of which, we found out that the books and the curriculum that they're taught is totally created from the left. Some of it's totally wrong. I saw an article where somebody had a book that was a Common Core curriculum mandated material that people go over, and it was talking about the Second Amendment, and it says the right of the militia to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is not what our Second Amendment says. So this is the kind of stuff that we have to deal with, these kind of usurpations of the left trying to slide into our culture and indoctrinate our children. So the left they're totally willing to do whatever it takes to basically take over the heart of the country. This is a battle for the heart and soul of the country. It really is. And as far as what's happening in Kiev, all right, let's compare this to the Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street movement, those people were literally bussed in, and they could stay there for however long it took to get it done. And some of these people have been paid to protest. And one thing that the Marxists have thought of, this Karl Marx, his word, you've heard me say it before, he likes to consider people that will do these kind of protests without knowing enough information about it. He calls them useful idiots. He recommends using these useful idiots to fight these kind of battles, to actually help spread the message of the propaganda that they have. So the left, they have useful idiots on their side, and these useful idiots are, on the government teat. These people are getting welfare, food stamps, unemployment, and let me first say, not everybody on these programs are bad people, and I'm not saying that anybody in particular is a bad person. But what I am saying is that these programs are full of corruption, and that so many people on these programs are abusing them. So with that said, these people on the left, they can have these people out there fighting to get more welfare, fighting to get all these government handouts, because that's how they live. And they don't need to go to work on Monday, because that's how they live. No matter what they do, they're going to get a paycheck. If they're there for a week, a month, a year, it doesn't matter. They're getting a paycheck. They don't have a job to go back to. They don't have a company that they're going back to run. They're not in charge of these kind of operations. They don't have people depending on them for their livelihood. Now let's look at the reverse, the other end of that. Conservatives. On Monday morning, conservatives have to go back to work. In my opinion, a Kiev kind of situation with conservatives at the helm could only last for a weekend. And even if we somehow manage to take over the White House or something, which, let me be clear, I am not advocating that. In fact, I'm advocating the exact opposite. I think we need to continue fighting this information war, because, as Hillary Clinton said, they're losing it, and they know it. They know that they're losing this information war. They know that people are waking up, and it's accelerating what they're doing. Eventually, we're going to catch them when they do something that's ridiculously outrageous, and eventually we're going to be able to turn the tide of the information war. People are going to wake up, and that's the goal right now. Wake as many people up to what our government is doing and let them know about the tyranny. Educate. Use things like the Constitutional Study Group that I've been doing and that I recommend that you all start. Try to actually, educate yourself, and more importantly, try to network with other people so that they can help you learn I find out every day how little I know about the Constitution. I find out every day how little I know about the world. I look at myself 3 months ago and I think to myself, wow, I really didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about anything. And I'm sure 3 months from now I'm going to think the same thing. So, with that said, I appreciate you guys listening to me rant about this kind of stuff, but this is our goal. I think this is the most important thing that you can do right now, everyone. Educate yourself. Learn what's going on in the world, in our country, understand the Constitution, understand your rights, and assert those rights. And try to get other people to learn as well. Try to educate the public. Try to let them know what's going on. But anyway, if for some reason there was a Kiev kind of situation and Americans, conservatives, ran to Freedom Plaza and took it over, and then to the White House and prevented the president from going to work and Congress from going to work, and they said, hey, no, you're not coming in here, we're not going to, kind of like an Occupy Wall Street thing, and they just prevent everything from happening, grind the gears of Washington to a screaming halt. If that happened, I don't believe that it could last. The NSA, they just waited out, and eventually conservatives would have to go back to work. And if they didn't have to go back to work, eventually the NSA would probably just come after the leaders and take them out like that. I don't think that this kind of style of protest or, basically unrest would work in America. That's just me personally. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's more important right now that we build up our networks. We get as many people to our side, and basically just try to convince people of what is going on. So anyway, when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about the plot of Turn Texas Blue and how James O'Keefe of Project Veritas has uncovered some of the corruption behind this program. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in about a minute 30.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. Okay, so when we last left the show, we were talking about a whole bunch of different things here. We've been talking about the situation in Kiev. We've been talking about all sorts of other topics like the FCC, how they're trying to put people in our actual newsrooms and try to censor the news that's coming out of there and have control over that. If you guys would like to join the conversation, give us a call. The telephone number of the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So, all right, I have a story here that it's been broke from James O'Keefe. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but James O'Keefe, he's the guy who does these hidden camera things with other like government organizations, and he's been basically trying to blow the lid off of what's going on with Obamacare, and he's the man that's responsible for basically taking down Acorn. So he's been involved with this organization here that's called Turn Texas Blue, and I find it really interesting what he's doing. He's basically blown the lid off this thing. They are using petitions to basically data mine, and they're getting lists of people to call and start petitioning, them to actually to go vote. So anyway, I have a clip here of James O'Keefe's. He's basically had like the hidden camera where he infiltrated Turn Texas Blue, and here's what he got.
Yeah, we're technically red, but the only reason is because Texas doesn't vote. So if we can change that, we can change the course of elections pretty drastically.
We're from Battleground, Texas. We're actually registering people to vote. You want to just go ahead and fill it out? Wondering if you all are registered to vote? Registering people to vote tonight?
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I am registering people to vote.
Jennifer Longoria, a field organizer for Battleground Texas, an organization that has the mission of turning Texas blue and helping Wendy Davis win election.
Like I said, what we're doing today is calling Democratic women to just say, hey, I'm calling with Battleground Texas in support of Wendy Davis.
Is this organization just registering voters, or have they become the new Acorn, using potentially illegal methods to change elections?
So every time we register somebody to vote, we keep their name, number, and that's from the voter registration form? Right, from there. That data collection is the key.
Project Veritas finds some more manifestly damning evidence in San Antonio. According to the Secretary of State, it's unlawful to transcribe, copy, or otherwise record a telephone number off voter registration cards, which is something Jennifer Longoria reveals Battleground Texas is doing multiple times. Longoria reveals a series of databases called VAN, where Battleground maintains registered voters. The first database, My Voters, is a list of all the registered voters Battleground Texas received from the Secretary of State.
So My Voters is a list of every single registered voter in Texas that we have purchased from the Secretary of State and since downloaded into our database. So this is everybody. Every single person that's registered.
The second tab of the database is the voters that Battleground has personally registered. Longoria reveals they have taken these numbers off of the forms.
Every time we register somebody to vote, we keep their name, number, and name, address, phone number, just so that we can get back to them, and that's where all that information is.
And that's from the voter registration form?
Right, from there. Once we get off the vote 3 weeks before, we can give those people a call.
Battleground Texas then gives scripts to volunteers to call the numbers off the voter registration forms to help elect Wendy Davis weeks before the election.
Hi, Wallace. My name is Sarah. I'm a volunteer with Battleground Texas here in San Antonio. We're a Democratic grassroots organization calling in support of Wendy Davis. How are you this evening?
People that we register today,
Right.
we will be calling in like here and saying, hey, I registered you to vote. Time to go.
And we get their numbers from the card? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep, because it's public information.
While Longoria says it's all public information, the Secretary of State calls this information confidential by law. Private cell phone numbers would be redacted. The only thing that would be given to anybody that requests a voter registration form would be the name and address.
Once we register people to vote tonight, we will all turn in our cards, and our data person will enter not all the information, but name, address, and phone number, and then whoever registered them into a database, and because that information will be pulled back up again once elections come up, and we can then call everyone here and say, hi, I registered you to vote.
Battleground reveals their data collection strategy and its effect on the upcoming election.
When you register someone to vote and you let them go, the chance of them actually voting is 15%. But if you register them to vote and you touch back with them just one time, not even more than one time, that 15% jumps to 60%. The second time you touch base with them, it jumps to 75%.
If Battleground Texas is willing to unlawfully transcribe and utilize people's private data, how far would they be willing to go? We've already exposed the communications director for Enroll America, who resigned in disgrace after agreeing to give out private data for political purposes.
Enroll America?
A group that is dedicated to helping people sign up for Obamacare.
Cut ties with an employee after he was caught on camera
conspiring to release the private data of you, the American people.
And Enroll America's relationship with Battleground Texas.
Battleground Texas, we network with them, we work with them, working with Battleground Texas, the same data that
Well, that won the election, I can say that this is the same brainchild with Enrolled America.
Is this all standard operating procedure for the Wendy Davis campaign? If they have access to people's private data, including maybe even health data, what's to prevent them from putting pressure on a voter close to the 2014 election using that data? Perhaps if they won't answer Project Veritas, they'll answer to the Secretary of State, who gave us the following statement about Jennifer Longoria's videos. Statute 13.004 speaks for itself. A lot of people ask me, James, why don't you investigate the new Acorn? After all, didn't Acorn just change their name? Well, you're looking at the new Acorn. In the 2008 election cycle, Houston Votes of Harris County submitted to a government office thousands of fraudulent and falsified documents attempting to register the same people multiple times, teenagers too young to vote, and even applicants who admitted to not being U.S. citizens. And now Texas is facing the new Acorn with Battleground Texas. Just how closely are Acorn and Battleground Texas tied? Check out this story in the Austin Statesman a few weeks ago where the founder of Acorn, Wade Rathke, was quoted about our efforts. The Statesman reported Wade Rathke, the founder of Acorn and chief organizer with Acorn International and United Labor Union Local 100, was on the lookout for O'Keefe. Local 100, Rathke wrote, instituted weekly staff-wide calls for all organizers, put out instructions and guides on how to identify possible O'Keefe acolytes, set up an early warning system in their efforts for any suspicious characters or questions that seemed inappropriate, and did office-by-office training sessions on how to handle O'Keefers. The Statesman reported that Battleground has sought to keep 10,000 volunteers from saying or doing anything that might play into O'Keefe's hands. This is the impact we're having right now. The founder of Acorn working with Battleground Texas to try to stop Project Veritas from exposing their fraud. But we're not going to let that happen, because this video is going to get results, and our next video is going to get results, and we're going to keep investigating Battleground Texas all the way up until the 2014 election. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and consider making a donation at ProjectVeritas.com to continue this vital work of exposing fraud at organizations like these.
So we had received absentee forms one year, and I just signed his name on one. Is that okay? Because I'm going to do it again because he's not going to vote, and he knows it's important to me, and he's like, go ahead, go to your meeting, do what you need to do.
The work that Project Veritas is doing, I think it's incredibly important. James O'Keefe is exposing what the left is willing to do to win these elections. They're really focused right now on trying to win Texas. They think if they can turn Texas, they can do whatever they want. And it's true. If they can turn Texas blue, all hope is lost. We cannot take this threat seriously enough. I hope that all of you are paying attention to what's going on, and I hope that these people that are trying to basically break the law, and like I said, this is the downfall. This is where the conservatives have a big problem, because they're not going to do this kind of stuff, and they shouldn't. But the left is prepared to do anything. They're going to use these useful idiots to basically take over Texas. And at the very beginning of the thing, they're like, we can't affect change because we're not allowed to vote. She's talking about illegal immigrants can't vote. They want illegals to vote. That's amnesty right there. And we've seen throughout history that when you try to vote in these or when you try to allow amnesty, especially from the Republican Party stance, and you basically half measure things, and you're not, because Republicans are not going to be the ones that are going to give the most. No matter what Republicans are willing to give, Democrats are going to be able and willing to give more. So that right there, again, is buying votes. Just like I talked about from the ancient Greece philosopher and how he was saying how people will vote for the people who are willing to give them the most out of the treasury. And that's true. And that's what we're seeing. We keep seeing this happen. And the left is willing to do whatever it takes. And this isn't even the first time. This is one of many, many programs like this that are full of corruption. For example, I had Dan Sandini of the Daylight Disinfected. He was on the show and he was talking about the Portland bus program. Portland basically infiltrated the schools with progressives. Well, it's really upsetting to me that we've allowed this stuff to happen, because they're basically getting kids at the lowest level, and they're turning them left. And this is why in our society, for some reason, it's so cool to be a socialist. You can't throw a stick without hitting a communist in Portland. And it's because of they're getting the young. They're getting people when they're young, and they're indoctrinating them in our schools. They're basically, they use the school system. And I don't know a whole lot about this thing. I just know what I have gleaned off of Dan, and he was the expert on this topic. But they basically they use our kids as part of one of the class requirements where they have to go. They have to do several different things, and one of the things they give you an option as your class requirement. You can go out and you can basically try to convince people. You can do like a canvassing, try to get people registered to vote or whatever, and they were using these kids to get Democratic votes, and they were busing these kids in for their class project to go get people to go vote Democrat. You don't see these kind of programs with the right. You don't see conservatives doing this kind of stuff. You don't see libertarians doing this kind of stuff. You know, it's been said that the libertarian plot, they have an evil plot, and it's to totally take over the world and leave you alone. You don't see this kind of stuff from anybody else but the left, because they're prepared to do whatever it takes to influence these kind of changes that they want. So, you know, to me, I'm really, really terrified about what's going on in Texas right now. I hope Texans are awake, and I hope that you guys understand that they are trying to come after you. They did it to Colorado. They think that they can do it to you guys. And if we lose Texas, we lose. There's no coming back. They can do whatever they want at that point. And this is the problem. The Republicans, the statist Republicans, these rhino Republicans, like, for example, Mike Huckabee, which, by the way, anybody who's thinks Mike Huckabee is a really good conservative, please do your research just a little bit. Mike Huckabee is one of the very people that said, hey, you know, Common Core, it's become toxic, and maybe we should change the name because, you know, let's keep with the principles of it. It's a good program, but it's toxic. People don't like it. So let's change the name and keep it running. That's a progressive tactic. He is not a conservative. Mike Huckabee is a progressive. He's a rhino, which is exactly why Mike Huckabee doesn't like the term rhino, because it's talking about him. So I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say. Give us a call. The number of the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. We're going to go ahead and take another commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
All right, we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. All right, so I have a comment here from Johnny Rocket on the event post here for our Facebook for this event, for this show, and he's asking me to comment on the situation in Arizona where there was a law to deny gays. And I didn't know anything about it, so I just looked it up, and I'm going to go ahead and go over this with you guys right now. The religious right in Arizona cheers. This is off the New York Times. The religious right in Arizona cheers of a bill allowing businessmen to refuse to serve gays. Now, I'm just reading the headline. I haven't had a chance to go through the article. I will give you guys my take on that if that is really the case. I really don't even know. But anyway, if people are allowed to refuse to serve gays in their community, And I think, honestly, I think that is totally fine, and I will tell you why. Not because I hate gay people. I have absolutely no problem with gay people. I think that anybody who decides that they're not going to serve gays, they have to have some kind of market there, or they're going to go out of business because people are going to boycott the heck out of these guys. So let them do that. If there is no market in that community for, hate-mongering kind of situation where you don't want to serve gays or whatever, or, maybe they have a religious reason for it. And for example, the one situation that I always keep coming back to is these cake decorators, okay? They make cakes, or cake bakers or whatever, and they had a gay couple come in who wanted them to bake a cake for their wedding. And this baker said, "Hey, look, I'm not going to do that. I don't agree with it. That is against my religion. It's specifically in the Bible. It says that sodomy is a sin, and homosexuality is a sin. So basically, in participating in this ceremony, I'm committing a sin, and I don't want any part of it. You can't make me do this because I have a First Amendment freedom of religion. I have an innate human right, freedom of religion, and you can't make me violate my religion, and I won't do it." So with that, they were taken to court and they lost. But now Arizona has passed a law saying that businesses have the right to refuse to serve gays. Now I hope this doesn't come to the point where it's I don't want your kind in my store. If that's the case, I think that's wrong. And you know what? I don't think that the government should step in though and play the moral authority. The government has absolutely no right to play the moral authority. In fact, the government is probably the worst group of people to play the government, the moral authority. And the reason why, and I say this every time I have this debate, is because the government has killed more people in human history than any other organization, any other group. No force on earth has killed more people than the government. So why should we allow them to play the moral authority? We should be very skeptical of everything that the government does. We should be very hesitant to let the government have any additional power or influence. We should be doing everything in our power to bog the government down in red tape, put them in checks and balances, and make sure that they can't basically do anything. And one thing I'd like to point out, our government, they go to work and they work so many hours every year, passing all these new laws. Why in the world do we need all these new laws? Our country ran perfectly fine 200 years ago without all these new laws. What is going? Why are we constantly adding to the books? What would our country look like right now if there was some kind of law that prevented Congress from going to work so many hours per year? Maybe we'd be a lot better off. Maybe not. I don't know. But as far as this gay rights thing, it's a blow to the LGBT community, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual community. I'm sure that they're really upset about this, and I'm not sure why somebody would do this other than like violating their religious freedoms. Is forced to make them participate in a gay marriage or something like that. But I see it if somebody was to actually do this and take a stand and say, look, I'm not going to serve gay people in my restaurant just because I don't like gay people. I don't think that restaurant would survive. I think the information would get out and people would boycott it, and that's just the free market out there working. And the beautiful thing about the free market is it's self-correcting, okay? So if somebody does something like this, if the market out there is okay with it, then these people will stay in business. But if the market isn't, these people will go out of business. And that's just the way it is. That's the way I look at it. And, I have absolutely no problem with the gay community, but I don't think that the government should be coming in telling us who we have to serve, what we have to do. The government has no business having that much influence in our lives, and they need to stay the heck out of it, in my opinion. So, anyway, one thing I'd like to talk about, and also, by the way, guys, give me your opinion on that. Email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com, or you can call in. We got about 15 minutes or so left on the show. You can call in. The number is 619-924-0986. Okay, so I'd like to move on, and one thing I'd like to talk about is the deflation of our money. We have seen the Federal Reserve, they keep printing more and more and more money. They're monetizing the money. They just keep adding zeros in the bank accounts, and they're investing this in the stock market. They're just pumping billions of dollars into the stock market, and it's propping up the stock market. So eventually this is going to come to a stop. And George Soros, he's a billionaire. He actually made millions in investing in countries' currencies collapsing. So this guy is super rich. As Glenn Beck calls him, he's like the evil, scary dude. He's a Russian, I think. I don't really know what his ethnicity is, but anyway, he's basically been investing in the demise of the U.S. dollar right now. So this guy, he knows so much about the stock markets, and he knows about the currency. So what should we be doing? Shouldn't we be paying attention to what this guy's doing? I mean, he's literally right now betting that the U.S. dollar will collapse, and he's putting his money elsewhere to basically profit and make a ton of money off of this. This guy's a player, all right. This guy is a bigwig in this money community. Basically, he is an elitist, and we need to be watching what this guy's doing. So what should we invest in? What is safe? You know, I don't pretend to know anything about the stock market, but I do know that eventually this system will come to a head. It's going to collapse. There's nothing that we can really do to prevent it except get out of the way of it and let it happen in its own natural course. As soon as they stop pumping money into the system, we're going to see some major problems in the U.S. economy. So what do we switch to? What do we protect ourselves with? Do we do in gold and silver? I think that's a pretty good option. That's historically gold and silver has always been worth something. And I've mentioned every episode how China has been investing more and more money in gold. It would make sense that we look at what these other countries and what these bigwigs are doing, what these elitists are doing, and actually start doing it ourselves to protect ourselves. The inflation from QE, even with the dollar not collapsing, even if the dollar is stable, inflation from this quantitative easing program where they're pumping billions and billions of dollars into the stock market, it's devaluing the dollar. So every dollar that you have in your bank account is worth less and less and less. And eventually it's going to come to the point where it's, $100 to buy a loaf of bread. What can we invest in, to protect ourselves? Gold and silver, stuff like that? Yes. What's another thing that could happen? Let's see. The world could decide to stop using the U.S. dollar to buy oil. So that's another big thing. Right now, we're the world currency. So in order to buy oil for a lot of places, what people have to do, what other countries have to do is convert their currency into the U.S. dollar and then buy the oil from whatever country. We've worked out deals with that. So that's, the U.S. dollar was really strong, and that was why they did that. But a lot of these countries are trying to get away from that because the U.S. dollar is weakening due to this QE program. So we're basically making ourselves irrelevant, and these other countries that have U.S. dollars, basically, we owe them money, and they have all these U.S. dollars in debt. It's becoming worth less and less. Like, it may be trillions of dollars of debt, but because we're printing so much money, it's worth less. Each dollar that we owe them is worth less, just like each dollar in your bank account is worth less than what it used to be. And eventually, if they keep printing this money and digitizing this money, these dollars will go from being worth less and less to being worthless. So what else could happen to you that you would need to have something put away, a nest egg? You could lose your job or get your hours cut. And just look at Obamacare. Obamacare is the biggest killer of jobs in America. Obamacare is making it so employers have to cut their employees, the amount of people that they have working for them. They have to lay people off because if they have over 50 employees, they're going to be required to pay for their medical care. There's been so many changes, and yes, there's a change where they delayed the mandate from 50 to 99, unconstitutionally, by the way, because President Obama doesn't have the authority to pass laws or change laws. He can only enforce the laws that are on the record, but that doesn't seem to stop him anyway. Anyway, Obamacare, it is a big problem. People are getting their hours cut, and they're going to part-time. People now have to work 2 part-time jobs in order to get 1 full-time wage, basically. And also, we got increased medical bills that people can possibly get. That's another problem. You get all these increased medical bills from Obamacare. So if you, for example, Obamacare has tripled and doubled health insurance costs So what you were currently paying, if you're not being subsidized, you are now paying double and triple what you used to. And a lot of people that got their hours cut, they now no longer get health insurance from their employer. Now they're working less hours, so they can't afford to pay for their health insurance. So many people are now without health care. Obamacare has literally taken away health care that people used to have. And now what if you get sick? If you get sick, now you've got all these additional costs. You're paying out of pocket for your health insurance. You know, this causes all these things that could possibly happen. We can see happening in our community right now and across the country. It's only going to get worse from here. So might I suggest that you look into buying food? I know I've mentioned gold and silver, but food is also a really great investment. And the reason why I say it is all the things that we just talked about. It also to include potential war. Iran they've wanted to park their ships offshore as a show of force. There's a lot of conflict going on in this world, and who knows what could happen. There's also, I believe there were some missile tests that were happening from Russia. It goes up into the air and it blows up. And they've done this test several times where they're shooting a rocket into the air and it blows up at the same exact altitude every time. And President Putin, when asked, I believe I'm getting this, I remember reading an article about this, but President Putin, I believe, was asked, why, it's too bad that the missile has been failing, or the rocket has been, the experiment or whatever has been failing. And he says, who says it's failing? Well, that would lead me to speculate that they're trying to do that on purpose. So, anyway, I may be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember where I got that from, but I'll have to do my research and read it off on the next show. But anyway, they have been shooting this rocket up in the air, and it's been blowing up at the same altitude every time. So what could they possibly be doing? Are they working on establishing an EMP where they take it up to a certain altitude and set off an EMP across the country and totally take us back to the Stone Age? We'll have no power. It'll fry all of our circuits. No cars will be running unless they're like the pre-1979 cars with no computers or electrical systems. These kind of things are things that we need to worry about. And I don't mean to sound alarmist, but if you have invested in food now, all right, food has historically always been worth something, and during times of emergency, the value will go up. It's great and everything to have gold and silver. That's an excellent investment. But if people are starving, they can't eat gold and silver. And if you're trying to trade with me and I don't need your gold and silver, but I need this food more, I'm not going to trade with you. These are things that we need to worry about. So might I suggest you look into buying food. You can invest now, and this food will last up to 25 years, some of this freeze-dried food. You can go to our store if you're interested. Go to OnTheMoveShow.com, click on the shop link, and go to the freeze-dried guy affiliate that we have on there. It's on that link, and they have a whole bunch of different awesome kind of food, and they're really tasty. The Mountain House food, I really, really enjoy Mountain House food. Like I said, it will last for between 10 and 25 years on a shelf. I guarantee if you're eating it after 10 years, the prices of food has gone up. But what it will do is it will protect you in case of an emergency. Look at it as like a life insurance policy. If inflation happens, the dollar collapses, the world decides to stop using the U.S. dollar to buy oil, war breaks out, you lose your job or you get your hours cut, you have increased medical bills, or you get injured and you don't have health insurance now because you're one of the people that lost your insurance because of Obamacare. If all these things happen to you, food will help you. You can cut into your preparations, things like that, but even just something as simple as regular inflation. If you kept this food for 10 years and you ate it in 10 years, that food is going to cost a lot more in that inflated market than it did when you purchased it today. So, if you take a couple of $100 or even $1,000, you buy a few months worth of food or a year's worth of food. No matter how you swing it, it's going to basically be a good value to you. And it's actually costs less to buy it in a freeze-dried packet now than going to a lot of stores nowadays. You can actually get more bang for your buck buying it in bulk like that, freeze-dried, than you can going to the store, and indefinitely than going to restaurants. So check it out. We have the store on there. It's OnTheMoveShow.com. Click the shop link and go to the Freeze Dry Guy affiliate and check it out. Anyway, I have a clip here that I'd like to play, and it's of a father who was sentenced to 6 months in jail because he overpaid on his child support. Here it is.
Well, a Houston father is facing 180 days in jail for overpaying his child support and over-visiting his 11-year-old son. His attorney and a community activist are now demanding answers. Randy Wallace joins us live with a story you'll see only on Fox. Randy?
Don, we all expect to see judges throw the book at fathers who fail to pay child support. But a father who says he's been doing the right thing now has an arrest warrant against him.
It's my responsibility to take care of it. You know, I brought him in this world. I have to.
Clifford Hall says he's more than happy to pay child support for his 11-year-old son.
I'm his father. You know, it's my responsibility to take care of it.
But Hall says when the amount of child support was modified, no one told him.
And I discovered that for some reason his employer was withholding a large amount some weeks, a small amount some weeks, zero amount some weeks.
And I didn't want to go to jail, basically.
So Hall quickly paid almost $3,000 in back child support. When Hall and his ex-wife were in Judge Lisa Millard's court last November, he owed nothing.
Opposing counsel testified twice that he's all paid up.
But the attorney representing the child's mother wanted Hall to pay her $3,000 in attorney fees, and Judge Millard agreed. Court documents also reveal Hall wasn't following the court's scheduled times to pick up his son, another modification he says he knew nothing about.
The judge ended up sentencing him to 6 months in jail.
When she said, I remand you to the Harris County Jail for 180 days, my mouth just dropped.
This entire situation is shocking to me. I've never seen one like this.
Community activist Cornell X wants the state's judicial board to investigate.
The court failed the child. The court failed Mr. Hall. The system broke down.
I can't be there for my son in jail. I can't pay child support in jail. You know, this is not in the best interest of the child.
Judge Lisa Millard says Hall walked out of court after he was found in contempt, which she says is a big no-no. Judge Millard also points out Hall's attorney could have filed a motion for reconsideration. She says that would have allowed her to hear both sides again and reevaluate the situation. Hall's attorney is now working on an appeal, and in a few days, Hall plans to turn himself in, and Don will, of course, keep everybody posted on how this plays out.
It really is a strange situation.
Very, very, very strange. I mean, it kind of shows that sometimes these things can be changed, modified. Maybe one parent doesn't know, but it's very confusing, and you've got to wonder how this man could go to jail for this.
All right, Randy Wallace, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that was a story of how this father got arrested for overpaying on child support. I find this stuff really unbelievable that we've gotten to this point in our society. I think it's each and every one of our job to get this kind of information out there. The government is far too overreaching their powers right now. It's a really critical time in history. Everybody just pay attention. And I know it's so easy just to get overwhelmed and give up. You know, it's a fight. I mean, every day that we have to do this, we have to be vigilant. We have to stay on top of this because the progressives, they are very good at what they do. They are practiced at this kind of stuff. They want to continue to expand the power, and it's going to take each and every one of us to actually get on the move, get out there and get doing stuff. So, I really value you guys, my listeners, because I know you guys are a really active cadre of people out there who want to have less government involvement in our lives. And they're not just, you're not just sitting back there and letting somebody else do it. It's important that we all stand up against this kind of tyranny. So, do things like sign petitions. That's great. Talk about it to your friends and family and everything. But, also get out and find a cause. Start a group, start an organization. Do something active. Get on the move. So that's our show for today. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. I want to thank you guys, my listeners, for tuning in every week. We really appreciate your continued support. Don't forget to check us out at OnTheMoveShow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/OnTheMoveShow, Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow, Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And, I would really appreciate it if you guys would check out our store, the shop link on the OnTheMoveShow.com page. If you guys are interested, check it out. We got a bunch of cool stuff on there. And again, all the stuff on there is going to help out the podcast, and it's going to help us get more stuff, better equipment, and make better YouTube videos for you guys. So anyway, I really appreciate it, guys. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, get on the move.